Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Kashmir has been, in the news for a pretty long time now, and recently more so for, some historic steps and changes that the Modi government has brought about. And when I speak here, I don't claim to, profess a strategic wisdom that they were not armed with or I can equip them with. But I speak here as a Kashmiri who, unlike the so-called mainstream actors, who had a very, I would say it was a very unexpected reaction, from Farooq Abdullah to Mehbooba Mufti to Umar Abdullah, that hey, as in, they were to jettison their citizenships or the links with the umbilical links with the Constitution of India. That's given them this eminence. I speak here as a common Kashmiri who believes in the Constitution, and for right or wrong, the changes that have been made, whatever has been, the tectonic shifts that have taken place, I'm one of those people who are willing to discuss and who are willing to sit across the table and thrash this out. Now, any constitution in the world, and that applies to our country as well, it's as good or as bad as the people that are driving it make it out to be. And the best constitutions of the world, they haven't, if they have not fulfilled the aspirations of the people, if they have not brought about hope in the society and in the system, there has been resentment, and the constitution as such has been negated. But when we talk of J&K and our constitutional rights, people are under the notion that 370 meant that rivers of milk and honey, development all around, prosperity was there. Far from that, what has actually happened is that this overdose of power, or this delegation of 370 and a host of powers that it gave to the state, these were observed more in breach than in compliance or service of society that they were meant to cater to or satisfy the aspirations of. And I have no hesitation in saying this, that if there were to be a deliberate, a textbook creation or a laboratory experiment of creating conducive conditions for militancy and unrest and disaffection, it would hardly have improved upon the model that has obtained in J&K today. The reason being that, among many other things that I'll talk of, if you go back in time, right from 1947, 49, when the Constitution came about, 53, we had a Prime Minister, Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah. Kashmir used to have a Prime Minister under its specific, constitution and constitutional arrangement. The scheme of things that Delhi, has brought about or ensured or cut short in J&K, it has been more of a prescriptive democracy. The prescriptions were formulated in Delhi, and an IOU system used to play out in J&K. As a result of those prescriptions having been made or devised between family friends, Abdullahs and the Gandhi Parivar, between the Muftis and the Gandhi Parivar or some dispensation at the center. 53, we had a Prime Minister, Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah, and one fine morning we get to know that Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah stands arrested. And I, as a Kashmiri, the person that, who fought alongside the forces in 49, when the Pakistani tribal invasion took place, and the same Kashmiri who had elected this government, or who looked up to this arrangement as a democratically thrown up arrangement, he was at sixes and sevens as to why overnight Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah, of all people, who had actually glided or even this accession that we talk of, with the Union of India, And suddenly he was found, guilty of sedition or the charges of sedition, and he was behind the bars. For 22 years, Sheikh Sahab was behind the bars until 75. I was in my school in the 70s, and I remember in 75, again, a quirk of fate or Delhi's whims, we get to know that Sheikh Sahab has been released, and Sheikh Sahab is going to be the Chief Minister of the state. Now, 59, a man culpable or guilty of sedition becomes nationalist and good enough for Delhi to sidestep and to ask the then duly elected, we would say in italics, to step aside and pave the way for Sheikh Sahab to take over as Chief Minister. In these 22 years, lot of water had flown from the under the bridges of the Jhelum. And this is a time when we had Congress governments by default or by a rigged process or whatever you call that. But by and large, the people had forgotten about Sheikh Abdullah and all his politics or the relevance of that for right or wrong reasons. And Sheikh Sahab, when he came in 75, he was Chief Minister for 2 years, and again suddenly the Congress dispensation of this day in Delhi decides that Sheikh Sahab is to be overthrown. So what the Congress does, Sheikh Sahab incidentally didn't have a majority. When he was installed as Chief Minister in 75, it was the Congress which had the majority. And Sheikh Sahab is asked to to resign because the Congress chooses to withdraw support. And what followed was the elections in 77, and Sheikh Sahab romped home with a thumping majority again. These are instances that I'm quoting, of the interference and of the kind of overreach that Delhi has, is found guilty of in Kashmir. And 77, Sheikh Sahab romps home with a comfortable majority, and National Conference government is in place. And now when he takes over, what he does is that under this garb of 370, some of the first decisions that government took, we now have an assembly, a legislative assembly that whose lifespan is now extended to 6 years instead of 5. So कहने का मेरा अर्थ ये है that this IOU, when it played to the satisfaction of the rulers in Delhi, it was okay. I was never part to that. I was never party to that. Neither in 53, nor in 75, when Sheikh Sahab was released, nor in 77, when the ambition of certain, Congress men in the state, the fact that they didn't have a matching, support on ground, notwithstanding, they chose to withdraw support. And signs, that started emanating from 77 were of the kind that a two-faced politics now is going to play out, and it's going to be anti-Delhi, and where it suits the local dispensation, Sheikh Sahab and his National Conference, it could be even in anti-India, and so it was. And the first of those steps came when he extended the tenure of the assembly to 6 years instead of the usual 5. It raised nobody's hackles in Delhi. Nobody cared. For 70 years, this Article 370, now today we are saying that it was a temporary provision, but for 70 years, nobody summed up the courage or the wisdom to have initiated a debate or a frank discussion on it. What is the difference between 371 and 370? One stands good for the northeast, and 370 we say it was temporary. Now I ask myself as a Kashmiri, is that my fault? That for 70 long years, the Congress dynasts, because IOUs were playing out, there was a whim which said Sheikh Sahab should go behind the bars, and there was a time which, something nice happened between the two. The chemistry was so good that it was again imposed on me. I am party to none of those decisions. For 70 years, I wish somebody had the wisdom or the foresight to see that what was effectively happening is that this arrangement was being leveraged now as a tool of perpetuating and perpetuating power of the dynasty. At that time, the Sheikhs. Come 83, we had an election again. Now, because 77 and 83 spaced out by 6 years, the assembly was of 6 years. Now, the Congress of the time, had an antipathy. By that time, again developed an antipathy for Sheikh Saab and for Farooq Abdullah. And when that election takes place, the Congress starts chest beating and chest thumping again after the results. Because Sheikh Saab, what they used to do there, they used to play to the gallery. And look, this is a vote for Pakistan. This is a vote for autonomy. And we are not like the rest of India. We have an assembly of 6 years. We have our own laws. It didn't raise anybody's hackles then, again. And when that election of 83 happened, Farooq Abdullah became Chief Minister in 82, I think. Yeah, Farooq Abdullah became Chief Minister post the 83 elections. Sheikh Saab's demise took place. Farooq succeeded, and Mrs. Gandhi flew all the way from here, if you recall. And post those elections in 83, the Congress now, it started raking up this issue that, hey, look, the assembly elections were rigged. And otherwise, this is not the kind of result that should have come in. Mrs. Gandhi, between 75 and 83, she was feeling a bit, she had a grudging outlook of the Sheikh and his politics by 83. Because she realized that in 75, I let free this man after 22 years, and by which time he was irrelevant. And once in power, now he started, that streak, of double speak, that has started coming in, and now he's challenging me. So what she did was, and of course with a local player, and later on that came to be the other dynasty of the state politics, the Muftis. Mufti Saab was Congress president then, and money bags were transferred from Delhi, and the MLAs were bought. The national conference was, it was, a division was ensured. In 84, Farooq Abdullah government is toppled again by the same Congress which is playing this facade since 53. Again, as a Kashmiri, I am at 6s and 7s. I say, why is this happening? I mean, I voted this man to power for right or wrong reasons. And when you talk of that clampdown today, there are people who say that, hey, Kashmir has become North Korea. Sorry, it's not North Korea, and you're free to say that, in conclaves that it's North Korea. North Korea, by the way, doesn't serve biryani to people in 7-star arrangements, even political detainees. And in 84, this government is toppled, and Farooq Abdullah's brother-in-law is made Chief Minister. Now, I'm giving you a recap of these are incidents actually. I'll come to the main subject. And this man, when he takes over, he imposes a curfew, official and unofficial, which lasts for around 6-7 months. GM Shah, if you recall, Farooq Abdullah's brother-in-law. Now, people today, when they say that we've removed 370, and there is this impression given that hey, we have reclaimed J&K. Oh, is it? How have you reclaimed J&K? It was never about J&K staying or being with the rest of the country, with India. It was about how best to keep J&K with us democratically. How to keep J&K together democratically. So that curfew took place, which lasted for a while. And people, who had cast their lot with this dispensation and were invested in it for a host of reasons, political conviction, commercial interest, or whatever, a leaning towards an ideology. The disenchantment started in 84. The militancy came in 89. The first signs of militancy actually erupted in 87. And when people today say, they chest beat and they thump their chests to say that we've reclaimed J&K, I would like to remind them of this election of 83, in which the Congress pitted itself as an alternative or as a challenger to Sheikh Saab, his successor Farooq Abdullah, and managed to assimilate and it managed the attention of a good number of people in the valley on a pro-India plank, mind you. I think they were in a voter range of around maybe percentage of around 15 to 20% in the valley. And they didn't get any seats. Mufti Saab was then Congress president. He lost elections. He was contesting from two places. Unable to reconcile to that loss, and Mrs. Gandhi's contempt for the Sheikh, it had reached a crescendo, so that government was toppled in 84. That was another setback. In 53, one. In 75, by which time people had, associated with a new setup. 83, when this election took place and the government was dismissed. By 86, now when that government took over in 84, GM Shah's government, it indulged in a range of malpractices. It had no stakes because, it was supported from outside by the Congress, and the dispensation in Delhi was very much privy to whatever was happening. It was, after all, they who had toppled Farooq and installed the puppet chief minister. In 86, the first sad and sorry sign that it would now tend to radicalism and it would now tend to take a religious, a religious route, or the facade of a friction between communities. In 86, now Congress is after GM Shah that you step down and we'll make Mufti Muhammad Saeed the chief minister. And GM Shah puts his foot down. He says, no, I'm not doing that. So what the Congress did, and which later, I think it appeared in the media, and the Congress leadership here was, of course, in the know. The first temple desecration that took place in Kashmir was in 86 with a myopic and a very ulterior motive to ease GM Shah out of power. If you recall, that was 1986 in South Kashmir, in a temple, in a very sacred temple of Hindus in Matan. And the first, those riots until then, communal riots in Kashmir was, it was unknown. We never had a brush with such an experience. So that's what happened. And overnight, GM Shah was dismissed. Rajiv Gandhi was Prime Minister, GM Shah was dismissed. Now, when these people, I was just telling you, when these people, who say that we have reclaimed J&K, I would like to remind them that after the election of 83, for right or wrong reasons, the agitation that the Congress sponsored on the plank that the elections had been rigged, we lost around 10 young boys in Srinagar. They were carrying the flags of India and of the Congress, and there was a brutal crackdown by Farooq Abdullah's police and they shot them dead. वो बच्चा जो कश्मीर का भारत माता के लिए जिसने जान दी थी, शहादत की थी, what happened? Why did he get forced? Why did he get carried away to pick up the gun? Eventually against the same system that he was fighting for, he had laid down his life for. What happened? In 49, when the tribal invasion took place, the Kashmiri, he fought alongside the forces to repel Pakistan. What happened in 70 years? How have we lost the trust of the Kashmiri? I mean, is it enough to say that, okay, we remove 370 and everything is going to be hunky-dory, everything is going to be all right? I wish it was that simple. The game of IOUs and the personal, those obligations and the personal friendships, they're still playing out in Kashmir. If anybody tells you it's going to change after the abrogation of 370, he is misleading the nation. And there are people who say that, the Kashmiri was very pampered. He had a lot of, he had an overdose of democratic freedom, and he was lord of all that he surveyed. When? I couldn't even take my own decisions, of having a democratic setup, of having people, of having elected representatives that I wish to see represent me. I never had that right, actually. It was a prescriptive, formulation which was devised by people sitting in Delhi for all the right or wrong reasons and imposed on me in Srinagar. And 86, after this temple desecration took place, the government was dismissed, and Rajiv Gandhi now, he could see that, it's gone too far. Now, if I choose to impose, because the assembly was kept in suspended animation, if I now choose to have Mufti Muhammad Saeed in the saddle as chief minister, it's going to be, it was a farce being played out, but now it might turn into a tragedy. Because, 53, 75, 77, 83, 86, and now to have a person back from the Congress after all this humbug would have been politically damaging for him. So what he did, overnight, those IOUs came into play. He said, okay, let's all sit down around the table. And, I'm telling you in a manner of speaking, everybody gets a share. So what happened? Farooq Abdullah is reinstalled as chief minister. Okay. There's a musical chairs going on. And we Kashmiris are, we're like fools. We're seeing this helplessly. There's nothing much we could do about it. And Farooq Abdullah becomes chief minister. Mufti Sahab now is brought to Delhi. He's made union tourism minister. And in the state, they say, okay, now what we do is that, why fight? Why quarrel between ourselves? We are family after all, the Gandhis and Abdullahs. Let's have a coalition. Now there will be no opposition. Okay. The boys that took the bullets in their chest for India and for the democratic process of India, they don't matter, because now we are chummies. We are best friends again, pals. And the next day, lo and behold, you have a Congress and a National Conference dispensation in place. I mean, there's got to be some morality. There's got to be some, some degree of shame left for you to be indulging in such kind of theatrics. But such was the politics of J&K. They got away with it, and we had to endure that National Conference and Congress regime. They were painfully aware of their relevance on the ground, and by the time the next election was due in 87, I don't know how many of you know that Sayyid Salahuddin, the Hizbul Mujahideen commander who is now based in Pakistan, was a candidate in Amira Qadil constituency. They formed, because the first signs of radicalism had come in. The first signs of religion having something to do with Kashmir politics, because the Kashmiris saw that every other, ruse or excuse or alibi or logic or, theory is being put paid to by Delhi. So maybe we whip up the religious now, this sentiment, and it might help consolidate a certain segment of society so that we overthrow this regime. So they formed a group called the Muslim United Front, of which Sayyid Salahuddin, now in Pakistan, the Hizbul Mujahideen chief, he contested elections from one of the constituencies against a very close relation of the Abdullahs. Their candidates were winning in not many seats, but at least 10 to 12 seats. Now, what this coalition arrangement had done was that it had delegitimized the space of the opposition. And there was no dissent. At least there was no dissent in the assembly. It was an arrangement, mutually convenient one. And outside outside of the corridors of power or the assembly, people were dissatisfied. There was a lot of hue and cry. And the 87 elections were to be then the precursor to the later day militancy as you all know it. Sayyid Salahuddin, this man, was winning the election, and he was declared, the relation of Farooq Abdullah, who was contesting from there, a cabinet minister, a heavyweight cabinet minister. He was not content with this fraudulently managed win. What he did was that after those elections and after the result was announced, he asked the DIG, he said, get that man here, I want to see. I really wish to see the audacity of the man who is this man who came up and challenged me in my fiefdom. He was brought to a police station and he was trampled upon and beaten for 4 consecutive days. Black and blue, and by the time they left him, And there was another guy in that whose politics I may not agree with today. But that's where he started from. That was Yasin Malik. So they bruised themselves nicely. Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani was also contesting then. And coincidentally, let me tell you, this radicalism of Kashmir which we talk about, sir, between 53 and 87, right, when this fraudulent election takes place, and which Rajiv Gandhi is like misled into conceding that, okay, let's rig these elections. He's told that, hey, look, if you don't do this, the radicals and the Jamaat-e-Islami are going to hold sway, which was not true. It's like what happened in Punjab. Simranjit Singh Maan was a radical. He won the elections. He never entered. He never swore allegiance to the Constitution of India, so people forgot him. The same would have happened in Kashmir. I'm not saying that Sayyid Salahuddin would not have, he had declared his allegiance to the Constitution. That's why they allowed him to contest. So once this 87 farce, it took place, the government came into existence against that of the Congress and the National Conference. So these people started regrouping. And now by this time, Ziaul Haq in Pakistan he had started working on this in 84. When you dismissed, you is not different from I. You means the dispensation in Delhi, political dispensation of the day. When we dismissed Farooq Abdullah, Ziaul Haq, the first initiation or the first moves that ISI and Pakistan are supposed to have made was post 84 when GM Shah becomes chief minister. So how fair is it to blame the Kashmiri today in the context of this background and in the aftermath of these tragedies? And then to say that we have reclaimed Kashmir and radicalism there, of course, radicalism will not countenance radicalism. By the way, Kashmiris जो हैं 53 से लेकर के, I was telling you, until 87, Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani could not win another seat. He used to be an MLA. He could not create the necessary, conditions or the influence, political influence, that he would, he should have been chief minister then. And if you saw this debate in Parliament recently, when Amit Shah introduced this bill, 370 bill in the Rajya Sabha, there was a telling comment which he made. And I wish an ordinary mortal like me can't, I can't say. But if I ever get to meet him, I would like to ask him this. He said, you know how people used to win elections in Kashmir? They were Khalik made. Abdul Khalik was a returning officer from Srinagar. And the prescriptive democracy that Delhi had for us Kashmiris. So Khalik used to do what he used to do is that he would dismiss, he would get nomination papers of 6 different candidates. Now Delhi used to give him a list that this is to be dismissed as formalities not complete. Some forms are rejected and that leaves 2 in the fray. One is already taken care of, so he's not going to offer any resistance, and then you declare the congressman elected. So Amit Shah said, they were Khalik made, right? And when in 75 Sheikh Sahab took over, I was a student in, I think I was in my primary school, 4th, 5th standard. Then I asked my dad, I said, I read civic science and political science as elementaries of that. I said, how has Sheikh Sahab taken over? We have an assembly where someone else has the numerical majority. He said, this is Malik made. I said, who is Malik? He said, Malik is Delhi. So between Malik made and Khalik made, the prescriptive, democracy that Delhi gave us, how is it fair to say that I was lord of all that I surveyed? 370 was, I was king. I'm not mourning that actually, because I've seen through the facade of that, of the gamut of that, drama long back. But in any democracy, the constitution, which is supposed to assimilate and absorb my energies, as our constitution does, and does it nicely. It's such a richly, drafted document, and there's so much of absorbance, there's so much of resilience. I wish when they took this decision of abrogating 370, a discussion had taken place. We had reconciled all these, experiences and, the factors, the things, the situation that brought us here in the first place. What has happened instead is that Narendra Bhai used to say, and he often used to say that we'll have a debate on 370. We might as well have had that. I mean, rather than, Delhi again coming out with a new prescription this time for a change, saying that, hey, now you're not lord of all that you surveyed, 370 doesn't apply to you. Okay. So that has been, I think, that has been, one factor that has made me numb and that has made me dumbfounded as a Kashmiri today. That I don't matter perhaps. I'm part of this constitution. For someone like me who is Indian, who is also Kashmiri, there is no conflict between the two. I wish people had asked us, I mean, what happened? How do we make it, how do we make the system more transparent? How do we remove this alienation? What has caused it in the first place? It's not that they don't know. The tragedy is that they know. But वही है जो IOUs का और personal chemistries का that system of obligations, it's again playing out in Kashmir. And one thing, by the way, on which all Kashmiris post 370 are very happy about, and they have no qualms on that one, is that the dynasts at last, they are where they belong to. But it's another story, sad story, that there's a huge bill that we are incurring, and they're in 7-star comfort. And on top of that, the international, the outcry that it's fetching us. I would much rather, as a lesser mortal, I'll not get that opportunity to tell Amit Shah or Narendra Modi that let them out. It's the people that, will bring them to book and hold them to account. Why are you giving them this kind of importance? But on a more serious note, let me tell you, if you go back, these last 3-4 years where the PDP was in coalition with the BJP, what happened was that interns, by the way, the only point in the recent years that Kashmir has ever seemed, limping back to normalcy or promising normalcy was when Vajpayee ji was Prime Minister. He was a great man and he had such foresight. Despite the fact that Mufti Sahib had only 16 MLAs, he chose to persuade or, he chose to reconcile conflicting ambitions of these people and parties which had, competing claims for forming government in J&K. And sir, I'm told that it was he who eventually asked Sonia Gandhi to concede and to let them form the government with Mufti Sahib as Chief Minister, despite the fact that he had very strong reservations about Mufti's separatist leanings, which is a fact. And unfortunately, that experiment, that which took place after Kargil, it almost restored peace to J&K. But for the fact that again that element of mischief and that backroom maneuvering led to that Amarnath tragedy, in which PDP ensured that there was a polarization on a non-existent issue of Amarnath. Polarization took place in a way that Jammu, laid an embargo on supplies to Kashmir, which has not even happened in 47. And that government came to an end, and again, it led to a conflagration and inflammatory build-up in Kashmir politically. And that government, when that fell, the Amarnath agitation, it claimed another 150 lives. But when this BJP PDP coalition recently took place, I don't think they factored any of this. The leanings, the dichotomy of PDP, vis-a-vis the constitution or, its practices and its leaning towards the pro-Pakistan elements at the same time. Otherwise, this radicalization of recent years, this last three or 4 years, and the spate, the increased spate of militancy, it might not have come about. In fact, when Mufti Sahib took over as Chief Minister in that swearing-in ceremony, he opened his heart out. Or was that to set the cat among the pigeons? He said, I thank Pakistan for the elections. I think Narendra Ji Modi Bhai should have, at that very time, been, he should have wizened up to the fact that this experiment is going to cost us a bit. And it did eventually. I was talking to one of these, security brass in the administration some time back. I said, there is a clampdown now. And in fact, we've overdone it. We seem to have overdone it. But what happened when Burhan Wani was killed? Remember Burhan Wani, the militant who was killed, and whose killing led to, it was a long-drawn agitation and stone pelting and all that kind of thing. And we lost another 150 lives then. He said, sorry sir, what happened then was that the PDP government, it put us, in shackles. It said that you have to let them vent out their anger, let them come out, which was diabolical. Had there been restrictions then, loss of life on this scale would not have perhaps taken place. These are things for Delhi to sit up and take note of, but unfortunately, I don't know. Experience after experience and failure after failure doesn't seem to have it doesn't seem to have imparted much wisdom or the lessons, the morals that it should. So today again, post 370, what has happened is that politics is now in a limbo, because people suddenly feel that they were not taken on board, the known mainstream. But when you talk of the mainstream and you look at those two primary protagonists, Abdullahs and Muftis, how mainstream were they actually? And did they actually was their activity conducive to strengthening of democracy taking roots in the state? Or was it that election after election, elections have only been an end unto themselves, not the process, not the forces that those elections unleashed? What has happened since 96, since we had our first election post militancy? They have actually had a fair amount of understanding between them, stated or unsaid, and vested interests have cropped up after 96, for whom militancy today is a full-fledged industry. Those elements are today there in the bureaucracy. They are also in the political setup. A lot of money is going from Delhi, and in fact money has never been a problem. But the way the state has been administered, it has led to a lot of heartburn, unrest and dissatisfaction. Why? Because those two families, which have run the state since 96 alternately, they have strengthened their own apparatus, which is meant to perpetrate or perpetuate their hold on power, and at the same time dissuading people, that the younger alternatives, the newer alternatives that could be part of this mainstream. So the mainstream in that sense is not the mainstream there. If they are today behind the bars, people see hope in that. People are not complaining why you have kept them behind the bars. People say this should have happened long back. Elections being an end unto themselves is not going to work in Kashmir. I think this last 1 year of governor's rule, now we are a union territory, we had Satyapal Malik, whose idiosyncrasies I don't need to recount, and he had a certain temperament, he had a certain predilection towards certain things. I wish we had a very strategic mind at the helm. We would have consolidated gains. Gains in the sense that the Kashmiri there today longs for fair governance, administrative redressal, something that he has not seen, poor fellow, for a long time going back in history. But these elections, that Lok Sabha elections took place, that 2019, our voter turnout plummeted to, in Srinagar it was around 4%. So that should have given Delhi some insight into the kind of dissatisfaction that prevails, or the fact that despite a governor's rule, a central rule in Srinagar, things are not looking up. And this August 5 decision, which I believe, I have reasons to say that, I don't have reasons to say that, I doubt the intent. Maybe the intent is good. But the manner in which we have gone about things leaves a lot to be desired. And going forward, if we have a reset, then we don't have to replay all that what has been happening in the past. But sadly, people at the helm today in Srinagar, they're the ones who have been, there for donkey's years, pandering and catering only to parochial vested interest of their own and ones that are associated with them. You have smartphones, most of you, all of you. If you Google search right now, Pathribal fake encounter. There was an encounter that took place in Srinagar in which 36 Sikhs were massacred. Sometime around Bill Clinton's visit, when he visited India. And there's a debate, that's there are imponderables whether this was done by the militants, this was done by whosoever. In 3 days' time, sir, what happened was that an encounter took place in which 5 people were claimed to have been shot dead, and the SSP of that time, of that area, he together with the army, they made a claim that basically the SSP, it was the Special Operations Group was functioning under the SSP, and he made a claim that these are the ones who had massacred those 36 innocent people, and they're all dead. Here are their weapons. And barely a fortnight later, it transpired, it revealed that those people who were killed were nomads, they were Gujars. They had nothing to do with militancy. Their photographs, some of their surviving family members, they'd seen their photographs, and they came up and they said they had nothing to do with militancy. We've lodged their missing complaints about a month back. That was reward-based operations. That was the lure of the kill. Now, mind you, the army as an institution is not into this. The civil police is. This again is it's one thing that's incentivizing. It's incentivizing extrajudicial overreach. It's incentivizing illegal killing, innocent killing. And the CBI stepped in and it was proved that, okay, these were innocent people, their DNA was done. That case is now, it was, for technical reasons, it couldn't be taken to its logical end because the Armed Forces Special Powers Act prevented the government from certain, taking it to its logical end or taking certain action against the culprits, including the SSP. Now that SSP has joined the BJP and he is an advisor today. How do you instill hope in the common Kashmiri son? He asks me when he says that, okay, you might not veil or you might not just thump removal of 370. How do you justify this? What does Delhi mean to do to us? Is this how they are going to treat us? What do I say? A party, any political party, in fact, I voted for Narendra Modi twice in succession for the prime ministerial, in the Lok Sabha election. But how do you justify excess in today's world? In any kind of society, in any world, even, had this incident taken place 10, 15, 20 years back, how could you have justified it then? How can you justify it today? A merit-based society which can't mete out justice, what does it do with 370 or the denial of it? I'm just giving you illustrative examples. If I start giving you exhaustive, we'll run short of time. In J&K, the administration today, there is no dearth of people, competent people, Kashmiri Muslims. Your bright IAS, IPS, cadre from Delhi, from MP, from I have an IG who is from Bihar. I have a DG who is a South Indian. He could be DG, but he's not DG now. I have a DG, in fact, who is from Punjab. They're all IAS, IPS. How do you discriminate in favor of the despised Kashmiri, the one that is the most dishonest? This has been your problem since 47 and you're still doing it. What is the reason? You don't have better examples to make of people there. And I know of people, I'll not name them, men of integrity and men of conviction, Indian to the core, Kashmiris, Muslims, even Hindus, they have been relegated to the sidelines. They can deliver much better. Why? Because the IOU system and the fact that Delhi has now gotten used to playing the chess from, the back rooms of North Block and South Block. So I have people there who are actually not integrating the Kashmiri with the, with the constitution or with the rest of India. I have people there who are actually, cutting at its very root. Two more examples I'll give you. There are two brothers. One is an IAS and the other is an IPS. They retired last year in June, before this August 5 decision was taken of withdrawing 370. And both were given extensions of 1 year. Okay, maybe it was required in the national interest, but was it in the national interest? These ma'am are gentlemen. One is a person who is now, again, you have smartphones, Google search. His name is Basir Ahmad Khan. He's divisional commissioner now in Kashmir. And the man was found guilty of misappropriation of government land and having fraudulently allotted it and, of handing it over, its possession over by ways and means to private people, to hoteliers. That matter is in court and it's been lingering on in court for 15 years, for 14 years. Why? Because the brother who has been given an extension is an additional director general rank officer, who is a man who is credited with having carried out anti-insurgency and special operations in Kashmir. And what kind of special operations? The army has carried out special operations. I've had fantastic commanders. General Atta Hasnan, General Panag, men of caliber, men of character. The army, there has been a resentment. There will be, because when you lay a cordon and search operation, and when there is use of force, there will be some collateral damage. There will be some resentment. But the army has tried to minimize that. The Kashmir police, there is a lot of resentment against this group called the Special Operations Group, and this is an additional director rank officer who used to head it. For every genuine encounter, he would, there was an excess that would follow. For 10 encounters, you had 10 cases of, excessive use of brutal use of force or power for various, for a host of reasons. And this man ensures that this case against his brother, IAS officer, doesn't proceed. It didn't. It's gathering dust in the courts. And I have a home minister or a government, order from Delhi, which says that their services are being extended in national interest. I see nothing farthest from national interest in this particular case. And if you're dissuading or if you're putting down Kashmiri society or your administration like this, how do you regain their faith? How do you say 370, the removal of 370 per se is the panacea? It's going to work. It's going to yield what 370 didn't do. Now I don't have 370, but did you ensure accountability? Have you ensured transparency? Have you put an incentive on merit? Have you put an incentive on nationalism, real nationalism? वो उनको तो बिरयानी खिला रहे हैं आप 7 स्टार में, उमर अब्दुल्ला and महबूबा मुफ्ती. I'll read out what there was a visit by the American embassy, and of course it might have had the intelligence operatives with an inbuilt as an inbuilt component. The WikiLeaks, I think, sir, you would have read it sometime. When they visited Srinagar, they said that what I'm telling you, that this has become a vested interest industry now. A recurring theme throughout all of our interactions with Kashmiris is how Indian and Pakistani money has made. all Kashmiri political actors dependent on handouts from both the sides. This is an American assessment. It's 10 years back. Umar and Farooq Abdullah, descendants of the Sheikh who first figured out Delhi's money game, live in fabulous houses in Srinagar. And Delhi both. They wear matching Panerai watches, serve Blue Label to their guests, and travel all over the world, first class. The Americans could figure it out, we couldn't. Courtesy of the Indian government. Mirwais, the head of the separatists, is alleged to have real estate in Dubai, courtesy of Pakistan. The state administration gets rivers of money for development, but the streets in J&K are appalling, even by Indian standards. This is how good we are, you know. So rich, 370. Army officers, we have heard, allegedly bribed their superiors for postings to J&K to get their hands on the logistics contracts and hearts and minds money. There is a hearts and minds money also we have. The secret funds over which the likes of this ADG sit. It's meant to network, it's meant to cull information, it's meant to synchronize operations. Sajad lamented, Sajad Lone the separatist, erstwhile separatist, that the conflict remained lucrative to many, and he's right. Communist Party member and legislator Tarigami also told us too many people have a stake in perpetuating the state's conflict. Between the two dynasts, Umar Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti, both agree that there is no dearth of resource, there is no dearth of Delhi's goodwill, there is no dearth of money that's come from Delhi. Umar Abdullah once put on Twitter, Mehbooba Mufti put it on Twitter once, Kashmir is a political problem and needs resolution through dialogue and reconciliation. Linking the upsurge with lack of jobs is unfortunate and an insult to the thousands of Kashmiris who have lost their lives in the last 3 decades. So, conditions apply. For power, within inverted commas, we are there, gladly, okay. But for resolution, conflict resolution, it's between you and Pakistan. We have nothing to do with that. What has Pakistan got to do with it? Have you set the house in order in Kashmir with him? आप लूटपाट करेंगे, you will, with your extrajudicial overreach, you will alienate people, you will not serve the cause of the community, and then you will ask the government of India to talk to Pakistan. But Delhi, as I said, it doesn't seem to have wisened up. Na tab hue the, na ab hue hain. They should have then known that, this is all a farce and we are being led up the garden path. Elections, per se, to have elections is not an answer, was never an answer. In fact, I wonder why after that Amarnath agitation, I suppose I would have rather preferred as a Kashmiri that there was a period where things would level out. There was a time, when Delhi would seize the seriousness and, the momentum of that issue and ensure fair governance and ensure some semblance of order in J&K. It never did that. Election karate gaye, which the two, the cousins, the sheikhs and the muftis, between themselves, they devised ways and means to, occupy the musical chairs. And Kashmiri tab bhi wahi tha, without 370, aaj bhi wahi hai, where he was when we have, now that we have removed 370. So, in nutshell, what I feel and what I suggest is that, one, that this, carving out that has taken place. Of course, when any government or any election, a democratic setup there is now thrown up, Delhi should unhesitatingly, it will have to go back to the drawing board and, what has been done actually is that, we have, people feel that not just 370 has been removed, but they have been divested of their, their identity or their, their rights in the sense that they should have been the ones who would sit, confabulate and deliberate a carving out of an administrative district or a unit. Nothing of that kind has happened. Delhi will have to go and go back to the drawing board and rethink all of that. And more importantly, important than this is how we are going to now capture and how we are going to captivate the attention of the common Kashmiri. With arbitrary decisions like the ones that we have been taking, more interested in individuals than in institutions, this is not going to work. It has backfired. It has backfired very badly. We should not be focused and obsessed with individuals. We should encourage, we should propel accountability, we should ensure that the people feel they're looked after. And 370 withdrawal or abrogation and status quo ante is not, it's not possible. We don't see that happening now, of course. I know as a Kashmiri might say that I would want to revert back to that position. But going forward, one can only look, forward and into the future. I think this is what Delhi needs to do. We need to own Kashmiris. We need to give them a semblance of fair governance. We need to ensure that justice is not just done, but it's also seen as having been done. And arbitrariness, which is an allergy to constitutionality of any kind, it will have to be avoided. We'll have to ensure that instances like these where people culpable or guilty of excess, of indiscretion, of misuse of power, they are held to account rather than make wrong examples of them. कोई advisor to governor बन बैठा अभी, man who has soiled hands, man who has blood of the innocents. I don't think that's the way to catch attention or to reinstill that faith which we must in the average Kashmiri today. I'll just conclude with one small observation. पाकिस्तान को हम जितना दोष देते हैं, howsoever much we curse Pakistan and hold it responsible, for every small thing now it's become fashion to say that we are doing this because Pakistan is doing this. Are we servile or are we hostage to Pakistan's machinations or misdemeanors? Has Pakistan come into the neighborhood just a decade or a few years back? They've been there since 47 से लेकर के 87 तक कश्मीरी पे उसका वश क्यों नहीं चला? Why could Pakistan not influence or corrupt my mind? And why has Pakistan been successful since 86? The breakdown of that chronology of events that I gave you, 86 mein, because conflict and crisis, as I said, are fertile soils for unrest. They invested a fraction of what they would have in a normal war, and here are the results: disaster. So instead of giving Pakistan this this halo of being so superior and so wily and so clever, I think it's time to do a reappraisal and set our own house in order. One thing that I'm very glad about, which when this resolution was brought, the statement, the intent of the government to to restore the semblance of order or to put their house in order in J&K first. And I think the Home Minister said that Pakistan has no role in that. Of course it doesn't, because we have to do it ourselves. So let's do that rather than this. There was in 80, there were two turning points. One in 71 when Bangladesh was carved out, and which I remember as a kid. 71 Bangladesh, when Bangladesh was liberated, the Kashmiri psyche, it realized that Pakistan was not able to hold itself together democratically. And until 77, 78, there was this, this very strong perception that casting our lot or even thinking about it is not pragmatic. It's not. It doesn't make sense. And that again got a boost kind of in 77. In 77, what happened? 78, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was, he was sentenced to death. And the average Kashmiri saw that as a subversion of the judicial process and, of democracy. That was another point where Kashmiris, actually distanced themselves from everything that was Pakistan. In fact, Rahul, there were processions, the kind that you see today, they would pale in comparison. In 77, Jamaat-e-Islami workers' houses were torched. Their businesses were shut. Because people said that, look, Pakistan is what it is today because of the radicalism and the fundamentalism that the Jamaat has brought. And this is why Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was, ek pratik the or a symbol of democratic, the process of the fruition of democratic process in Pakistan, when he was hanged, and the Kashmiri, could see that it was an extrajudicial murder. So, wo ek sympathy ya jo ek wo tha, that on the back of their minds, it had all washed away. And then what we did ourselves is history. You know all of that. So it's a very interesting, it's a long subject, but I wish I could, we had more time.
Javed ji, I will start off first. आप मेरे guest हैं एक तरह से, मगर I'm going to challenge you. Please,
Yeah, sure.
You will have to bear with me.
Sure.
So I'm left completely confused after your talk, to be honest. You've mentioned that all these breaches of people who have been in crime, have their hands soiled, putting into plum positions, all of this. It's sounding as if it's unique to Kashmir. It actually happens all over the country.
Correct.
All the governance manipulations, Maharashtra is a recent example.
Correct.
Police fake encounters, Hyderabad is a recent. I don't know if it is fake or no, but it is a completely case of police overreach.
Correct.
You cannot go and kill just 4 people, and there is massive uproar, wonderful things clapping all over the country going on.
Correct.
Yes. The situation of Pakistan interfering, or
can we take it one by one?
Of this, sir, all of this, right, together. Punjab, we did not do anything.
No, I'll not be able to focus. Let me round off your first question.
All I'm saying is that it is nothing at all which is special to Kashmir.
No, you can continue with the entire sequel, but I'll knock off the first one.
Yes, go ahead.
Which is why corruption and malfeasance or extra legal assertion. You say it's not unique to Kashmir, right? I beg to differ with you there. I'll tell you why. This is why I explained when I explained the context. From 53, there is not a setup that I identify with. The ruler, mera qatil hi mera munsif hai. The ruler is one who is himself supplanted, not thrown up by me directly as such.
Sir, the Sikhs may be able to say that for Punjab equally.
Which election in Punjab which election in Punjab did you have where the elected chief minister was incarcerated for 22 years, where a puppet was installed, and who would be more prone to who would have more sympathy with the officer that I was complaining against? And in J&K, my state is a geostrategically important state. Pakistan, which we just said that I remarked that we are making much of Pakistan's ability to for subterfuge and sabotage. But instances such as these, where the commoner doesn't associate, the ruler does not have the sympathy or the accountability to his elector. How do you suppose when I go to this ruler or this minister or chief minister of mine, he's not caring 2 hoots for me as a citizen, because he knows he's got his links in Delhi intact. It's not me who has
put that's exactly the challenge, exactly the question which happens everywhere. I have to deal with the labor inspector exactly like that. He treats me like a piece of shit when he enters my office.
Doesn't he?
I deal with that.
What are your mechanisms for
sitting in Delhi? I deal with the MCD and the SDMC local peon like that. There is nothing special in what you
all described. Right, but there is a redressal. There is
no redressal.
No, there is.
Court cases last 15-20 years here also.
If you find you don't have redress here in Jammu and Kashmir, you would feel you are under martial law.
I agree. Fair enough. But that's the same thing everywhere. Manipur, Assam, even Tamil Nadu, Hyderabad, there is no redressal in the country. That is the general politics situation of the country.
True.
The challenge is why is it made out as if this is unique to Kashmiris and as if the Indian state must do something extraordinary for Kashmiris?
Indian state must not interfere.
But
The
it is not-
prescriptive
it is-
democracy that we are being administered from Delhi since 53 that hasn't given me hope all these years. One scam after the other, one excess after the other.
But-
Tell me okay,
Sir-
I'll give you instances of
Sir,
Punjab.
here
you give
billions
me
of dollars of projects are stopped overnight with just on whims and fancies of government alliances. The entire metro project, the entire Amravati development project, everything has been stopped. Do you see Telugu people on the street stone pelting with their grouse?
No. You are comparing apples with oranges.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I actually have not been able to get what is the apples and
The-
oranges difference between
yeah,
the rest of
absolutely.
India and Kashmir.
Because you have proxies, Delhi proxies in Kashmir. The ones at least in Punjab or Delhi, Kejriwal is not a proxy. He may differ with you. He may say that, okay, this was your political commitment. It's not mine. At least he is not going to say that this man who killed 5 Kashmiris, innocent Kashmiris, and was rewarded for killing them. He's not going to say that, okay, now this man is going to
But Omar Abdullah could, or later Syed could have removed them. I mean, Delhi
the
does not
patronage system.
interfere
You
in-
have the patronage system playing out.
Okay,
Since
but that is-
96,
yeah, that's exactly how the Congress worked here, sir.
Each one of them.
Sir, that is exactly how the Congress worked here. Every institution is infiltrated here, from ICCSR, ICHR, wherever you go, it is full of leftists because of the Congress leftist alliance. Have you read our history books? It is not the history that we know of or we should be proud of as Indians.
Fine.
There is no difference. I don't understand this whole point about Kashmiri victimhood. This I'm not able to get at all.
Why are you not able to get it?
I'm not able to. I mean, I see this every day in my daily life.
This is playing out since 53. It's not victimhood. How many chief ministers? How many ministers do you know of who were there one fine day and removed whimsically and put behind the bars and restored the
okay.
the next day?
Okay, I mean, I will take that. That some
How many?
whimsically.
Quote me an example.
That does
How many Narendra Modis have you seen in Kashmir rising without the patronage system?
Sir, okay,
The Congress has ruled for 70 years. It was elected. It was
this
elected
is
by the people of India.
This is the first time in Indian history that a person of patronage has risen to become the Prime Minister
Yeah,
of the
true.
country. This is the first time in 70 years.
You
all
also
of
have
India
a
has seen that.
Kejriwal. Give me an example where a Kashmiri as a Kejriwal has come up. Give me an example where Narendra Modi as a Kashmiri has come up.
Okay, but Sheikh Abdullah,
I can
Farooq
give you
Abdullah,
100
Omar Abdullah is exactly how India has been ruled for 70 years.
Yeah, true.
Exactly like
True.
that. So,
True.
I mean, it's the same thing.
A Sheikh Abdullah, a Gandhi being, returning
Sir,
to power, a Gandhi returning to power, basis popular mandate, and a Sheikh Abdullah taken out handheld and made to sit in the chief minister's
Sir,
post
let me take
are not identical things.
Sir, I will tell you the identical thing. Let me take you back to before the partition happened. Out of 13 presidencies of Congress which voted while Mahatma Gandhi was the de facto chief of the Congress party, when the voting happened, 1 vote Nehru got, 12 votes was to Sardar Patel. Gandhi completely vetoed all of that. This has been going on in the country forever.
And you paid a price for that.
Doesn't matter. Paid a price or no, we're all living with
And
it.
would you say you haven't?
All living with it, with the constitution.
Would you say you haven't? You have paid a price for that.
Sir, paid price or not price, all of us have paid price for it, but we've all lived along, worked with the constitution, worked with however we are, with all the mess, and tried to strive. See, there is no victimhood in me. I am angry. I am very angry. But there is no victimhood कि मेरे को जबरदस्ती extraordinarily
Which
मुझे
election
पीटा
did you
गया है.
contest against a chief minister and where you were taken to a police station and beaten black and blue, divested of your right to vote or divested of your right to contest? At least you might file your papers against Rahul Gandhi or a Narendra Modi tomorrow. Do you think anybody can do that in Kashmir?
RSS workers in Kerala, just for standing up against an election, get killed. A person who goes and rubs Ramalingam in Tamil Nadu, 2 people come to convert him to Muslims, and all he does is, हम अपना धर्म, अपनी टोपी लगाते हैं, मैं आपको ये लगाता हूँ. His hands are cut off and he's killed and thrown. What are you
Now,
talking
are those
about?
exceptions or is that the rule?
Kamlesh Tiwari talks about somebody comes and slits his throat. That's not an
Absolutely,
exception,
absolutely.
sir. This
Tell
is
me.
happening all over the country.
Are those exceptions?
No, sir. This happens. This is regular mess of a corrupt country all over the place.
Not as a rule, as an exception, yes.
Yesterday, Jamia students pelted stones to Delhi police.
It was sounding like Srinagar.
How did they get the stones, sir?
सर आपके लिए ये न्यूज़ है ना, मेरे लिए ये कश्मीर में दिन में 100 बार होता है.
Exactly, sir. The challenge, sir. The essential challenge here
It
is,
happens with me, 100 times a day.
sir. The essential challenge is this. You see, एक बरखा दत्त का बड़ा telling interview है. एक second. बरखा दत्त का बड़ा telling interview है. She goes and just 1 second. She goes and asks this man who's brutally injured on TV interview. पूछती है उससे कि आप किसके लिए लड़ रहे हैं? वो कहता है मैं इस्लाम के लिए लड़ रहा हूँ. आप इस्लाम के लिए लड़ रहे हैं या कश्मीरियत के लिए लड़ रहे हैं? बोलता है मैं इस्लाम के लिए लड़ रहा हूँ. नहीं आप कश्मीरियत के लिए लड़ रहे होंगे. मतलब ज़बरदस्ती ये कुछ वर्ड्स डाले जा रहे हैं. सो द होल पॉइंट इज आई एम चैलेंजिंग दैट ये isn't it actually a very strong Islamic identity which is just saying
That
that
is
मैं
not-
unique हूँ.
That is not unique to India at this point in time. Right?
In
Is it?
concentration, yes.
Is it?
It in concentration, yes. And my feeling is if the demographic change
How
happens.
many people have we had from India, who've been, affected by the ISIS or been actively, part of that, or conspirators, or
I don't know the question. I don't.
how
get the
many
question.
people
Ji.
in India, how many Muslims in India have been found complicit in that?
Quite
that
a lot. I mean, there are other than
I mean,
Tamil Nadu, Coimbatore.
exceptions. No, despite the fact that this, despite the fact that this epidemic is global as of now at this point in time. एक ये epidemic है और इंडिया में अगर आपको 10-20-100 लोग ऐसे मिले हैं, I mean that's a trickle, that's a drop in an
But
ocean.
what does that mean, sir? That actually states something for the Hindus of the country based on which the Muslims are not radicalizing. It is the Hindu culture of the country which is keeping all of that intact.
No, when Mr. Venkataramani was speaking, you mentioned it, and he mentioned, he spoke on it, and you mentioned it even then, that India being secular, predominantly Hindu and secular. That's a fact. I mean, that's a statement of fact. Where is the conflict?
No. So I don't get your point. It is secular and it is
It is Hindu and it is therefore secular.
Yeah, okay.
That is conceded.
Okay.
Who says no? I mean, I was in my talk, I said the Kashmiris saw more hope in Hindu India than in Muslim Pakistan. Why? If he was radical, why didn't Saeed Ali Shah Gilani manage 50 seats?
I mean,
in the
they
assembly?
moved away from Pakistan, I would agree, but I'm not sure if they aligned with the Hindu India. So there are two distinct parts of it. In my travel in Kashmir,
until 87 happened, if you've been to Kashmir,
Yeah.
and until 87 happened, every Kashmiri that used to come here, was treated like a king. Even now, when Kashmiris come to Delhi, you would note one thing, that आपको मॉल में भी यहाँ मिलेंगे, थिएटर में भी
कैसे मिलते हैं पता ही
things
नहीं
that are taboo in Srinagar, things that you would see our ladies fearlessly, and sometimes you would find them in the mall, sometime in a restaurant with kids around, maybe in a park or in a whatever leisure park. So that kind of assurance, that kind of comfort the Kashmiri still has in Hindu India. Where is the conflict? Where is the conflict?
So the conflict is
Anyways,
you,
मैं किसी और पे
completely set aside the genocide that of Kashmiri Pandit that took place in 1989. The conflict is when you don't even mention that aspect at all. The conflict is when nobody from Kashmir, even now, is ready to take them back. But unless until we have a ghetto of Kashmiri Pandit, we won't be able to have.
On that, let me tell you. Kashmiri Pandits को लेकर के जो है, I didn't repeat that, but if Rahul has seen that, or Rahul would have heard that, in one of my talks, that was exclusively, have you seen that talk, Rahul? The one, where I talk of Kashmiri Pandits and the circumstances that made them, you can see it on YouTube today. Kashmiri Pandits are part and parcel of Kashmir. Without them, Kashmir is incomplete. Number one. Number two, when they moved out because of the fear psychosis or because of the imminent threat of militancy and militants, that threat was not the threat from the local populace. That threat emanated from people, a certain set of people who had killed, who had vandalized quite a number of Kashmiri Hindu Pandits by then, maybe around 100, 150, the count that is known of. And that euphoria, that frenzy, that post Rubia episode, Rubia Saeed episode, what happened was that when you let go and the government of India released those militants, there was a total chaos and it was perceived to be as an abject surrender of the authority of the state. उसके बाद जो वहाँ crisis हुई है, the law and order machinery melted away. There was not adequate there were not adequate security forces on the ground. Even if there had been someone who felt vulnerable, as the Kashmiri Pandits did, you would not blame them moving bag and baggage, and in fact most poor people could not even carry bag and baggage. They just had to leave overnight. I have been repeatedly, and this is a farce, the impression that is given that Kashmiri Pandits moved under a conspiracy. I have been repeatedly saying this. It had nothing to do with a conspiracy. Nobody conspired to move them out. Jagmohan didn't, the government of India didn't, neither did Kashmiris per se. Yes, our failure lies in the fact that we could not give them, because the all-pervading fear of the militancy and the euphoria that had gripped Kashmir by that time, leading to a total meltdown of law and order. We could not assure them, or majority should have assured them, or majority. But you're forgetting one thing, sir. When you talk of Kashmiri Pandits, बहुत सारे Kashmiri Musliman भी उस period में जो है, they have had to migrate. The people who were voters of Congress, the cadre that belonged to the National Conference, the cadre that belonged to the communists, the mainstream political parties, if you care, just put in a RTI, you would find कि उनको एक migrant relief मिलता था from Jammu. When they moved to Jammu, outside of the valley, and there were at least 50-60,000 Muslims as well who moved out, because many of them were killed. Rahul, in Kashmir, in Srinagar proper, where this Sayyid Salahuddin contested his election from, a National Conference bloc president, Muhammad Yusuf Halwai, he was shot 12 times in the head. And there were scores and dozens of him. My own uncle was, he was butchered. We found him in 2 pieces. 32 bullets were pumped into him in our hometown, Vijbada. So to say that Kashmiri Pandits pe hi wo directed tha, that's not true. But yes, that plan was diabolical, and what led to the exacerbation or the aggravation of that situation was that release which took place at that time. That was a very ill-considered move. Kashmiris themselves were of the opinion that had the government of India not released those militants, perhaps the social pressure and the kind that Rahul referred to just now, that the Islam doesn't provide for certain things. Kidnapping of a woman is one of them. They would have let go of the woman in any case. उसके बाद जो वहाँ एक that was perceived to be like as if the government forces and government had withdrawn from Kashmir.
So we can have different stories for different reasons, but the eventual outcome has been the same. Be it in Pakistan, be it in Bangladesh, be it in Afghanistan, or be it in Kashmir. But only thing who have suffered is Hindus.
That is true. Kashmiri Hindus have suffered.
We can have different stories for every reason. Pakistan can say
there will be the.
Sir, just a moment. Pakistan can have their own opinion on many aspects. Why Hindus population gone down from 23% to 1.6%. They can have their own story. The eventual aim was to kill Hindus altogether and wipe out Hindus from their territory. Same thing happened in Kashmir. Just couple of months back, incident happened in Hauz Qadi, right in the heart of Delhi. I have been born and brought up in Chandni Chowk. I mean, I have lived my life there. An incident happened between 2 guys. The next thing what they do, the Muslim guys, they immediately attack the Dungamal. When did
see it is
any incident happened among Hindus across country, across lands and breadth of this Indian subcontinent, where Hindus came together and attacked the mosque? Forget about that Babri thing, because that case is going on for the past 500 years. Otherwise, tell me one incident. Immediately they attack the Hindu temple. What
It
was the
is,
reason?
see,
And tell me, let me tell you, all the guys have been, all the guys have been set free. Nobody is in jail. The guys who were taken for the, what do you say?
see, any moral transgression doesn't need to be ascribed to a religion or a community.
Every time.
Eh.
Because why did we have the stone pelting on police, and they couldn't retaliate even?
This is not about religions.
There was not a
Deviant, you know, behavior doesn't necessarily belong to a
I tell you, just
religion.
One last thing. When Baba Ram Rahim protested, the supporters protested. 32 guys were shot dead, and there was no stone pelting from there. They had just lathis with them, no stones.
And how many?
Nobody from the country protested against the police brutality. And here you have nothing of that sort. No traffic jam, nothing.
What is the question on?
Question is, every time an incident happens, Muslim parties attack and they try to.
Now that is a subjective view. I say deviant behavior has got nothing to do with religion.
सर एक्चुअली यहाँ पर वही काउंटर वही आ रहा है कि डिविएंट बिहेवियर हैज ऑलमोस्ट टेंड टू सो
अब ये हैदराबाद रेप केस ले लो आप, ओके, देयर वाज अ गाय, देयर वाज अ मुस्लिम, राइट, बट they were not doing it, you know, pan religion. It was a criminality, an act of it was not in solidarity that the rest joined him.
Sir, 2 points. So, sir, you said that the local Kashmiri Muslims were not accomplice in the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits, but there was not just one exodus. There have been many exodus in the past, and also there have been many written accounts of the 89 exodus in which many of the neighbors were a part of it. Now, second point is till 1990, January 1990, all the Pandits that were living in Kashmir also faced the same issues regarding the administration and the governments as the Kashmiri Muslims did. After that, they also, you know, were made to leave and they were made refugees in their own country, but they did not pick up the guns, they did not pick up the stones. So, yeah.
Right.
सर आपने कहा कि ये जो 90 के दशक में जो कश्मीरी पंडितों को वहाँ से निकाला गया, जिसकी बात अभी हो रही थी, आपने उसमें ज़िक्र किया कि किस प्रकार 50 से 60 हज़ार मुसलमान भी उसमें शामिल थे और हिंदू जो थे वो टारगेटेड नहीं थे उसमें. लेकिन सर जहाँ तक मेरी जानकारी,
सिर्फ हिंदू टारगेटेड नहीं थे,
सिर्फ हिंदू टारगेटेड नहीं थे, ठीक है, लेकिन जहाँ तक मेरी जानकारी कहती है कि वहाँ पर मस्जिदों में लाउड स्पीकर से रालिफ गालिफ सालिफ जैसे नारे लगाए जाते थे. इसका अर्थ सभी को पता है कि या तो आप धर्मांतरण कीजिए, या तो आप चले जाइए, या तो आप मार दिए जाएंगे. तो सर ये धर्मांतरण किसके लिए, अगर ये सिर्फ हिंदू टारगेटेड नहीं थे तो ये रालिफ गालिफ सालिफ जैसे कैसे नारे लगते थे, इसका कौन इसके लिए किसको संबोधित किया जाता था? ऐसे नारे कि हम कश्मीरी पंडितों को अपनाएंगे मगर उनके पुरुषों के बिना और महिलाओं के साथ. तो कौन यहाँ पर टारगेटेड किया जा रहा था?
टारगेट तो हिंदू थे, इसमें कोई, देयर इज नो टू ओपिनियंस ऑन दैट. आई डिड नॉट से दैट इट वाज नॉट, the Hindus were targeted. Yes, definitely yes. That was a ploy, that was a Pakistani ISI ploy. But if you think that the majority was of that opinion, majority की उस वक्त कोई voice नहीं थी. The gun ruled supreme. This man that I mentioned, that block president of National Conference, he got 12 shots in his head because he was a resident of a locality which had a Hindu, which was fairly, you know, it had a fair Hindu populace. उनको terrorize करने के लिए the Muslim was shot dead. Hindus were target, yes, definitely. There were, जो आप कह रहे हैं mosque से ऐसी आती थी, definitely होता था. Madness was ruling. There was definitely an element of hysteria. There was definitely. I am not denying that.
Where this madness was coming? What is the root cause? Where is the root of this madness?
The root of this madness, I told you that it was a Pakistani ploy to change the demographic, profile of the state. और जो वहाँ vitiation तब हुआ, anybody pro-India, the Hindus were perceived, not just perceived, but presumed to be pro-India. So they were targets, obvious targets. Yes, they were. Otherwise, why would they have बेचारे वहाँ नंगे पाँव थोड़े ना भागते वहाँ से? As far as his question goes, that why Kashmiri Hindus didn't pick up the gun, it is like sanity कहिए उनकी, या ये कहिए कि उनको वो अगर उस वातावरण का या उस मिलियू का और कई दिन तक there was a incident, coincidentally a case of a Hindu boy who, you know, the Hizbul Mujahideen claimed was working for them, and he was killed in an encounter in Srinagar, by the way. I'm not recalling his name, but if you search it, you will find it. Hindus, when they left the place, they left, you know, with all the baggage of negativity behind, and credit goes to them for that. अगर वहाँ बने रहते उसका, जैसे एक लड़के की एक से ज़्यादा थे वैसे, बट एक का तो confirmed है, there was a Hindu boy who was killed in an encounter, रवि नाम था उसका. Now you can Google that. And had they, you know, been forced, or had they per force of circumstance been required to contend with this, शायद 10,000 नहीं तो शायद 100 लड़का उनका भी हो गया होता involved, maybe. You don't take it to it by choice. At times you are driven to it, the way Ravi was.
Sir, my question is very straight and simple. Sir, tell me how far this idea of democracy stand in consonance with the ideological construct of Islam, and just
Democracy versus Islam.
how this idea of democracy stands. How far this idea of democracy stands in consonance with the ideological construct of Islam.
Even if he has got very, they've got to wind up. Even in Islam, if you know delve into our अब मुल्ला और जो आज के fanatics वो देते हैं interpretation इसका, Islam also has been guided by, you know, not the concept of the modern democracy, but by, you know, consensus or by approval. हमारे यहाँ अब even if you
Caliphate and democracy is a man-made idea. So basically,
everything will change. Everything will be interpreted in a certain light, in a certain context, in a certain era.
So you think that there is a room for
Definitely, yes. Why not?
democracy?
I mean, definitely. Look at Saudi Arabia today. Look at Saudi Arabia today. The kind of reforms they are making.
That's not democracy.
That's not. But see,
Interestingly, David Singh, मेरे साथ में ना शेखर गुप्ता बैठा था फ्लाइट से बैंगलोर से आते हुए, मैंने पकड़ लिया. So I started asking him a few questions on this same demographic change. So he tells me, I asked him clearly, will India remain this 80% question? He says, if India becomes 80% Muslim, it is not possible for India to remain. मेरा मन किया वही रिकॉर्ड कर लूँगा. शेखर गुप्ता ये बोल रहा है.
हमारे यहाँ जो निकाह का कॉन्सेप्ट है, your concurrence is sought first. Yes or no?
So just one last thing to stick to the original topic that was being discussed. Sir, I just want you to summarize in as short as possible. What do you think the abrogation of 370? What kind of an impact will it have on the psyche of people in the valley, and how will their attitude change now? What is past, let's say. Now going forward, how will it change, and what change do you see for Kashmir today?
Sir, as I said, reset. Okay, there is, you know, in this digital age and in this age where people have aspirations of a different kind, economic, political, social, reset, 370 could mean reset. And if we are resetting for good, for betterment, it will, of course, you know, attract and, as I said, captivate the minds of the people there. But if we are, you know, replaying, as we have in the past, aberrations and excesses, then sorry, no hope. The people there, the youth there, Abhi Rahul ne kahi, this Rahul, somebody wrote to me last time. He said, you must see that speech of mine on YouTube. Just punch in my name on Kashmiri Pandits and all, 35A and 370. So he said, there is this Kashmiri youth who's aspiring to be an IPS. He wrote to me, I get many DMs. And in fact, my talk or my, you know, my narrative is a bit, it's not the typical Kashmiri narrative. I said I am a Kashmiri and I am an Indian. There is no conflict. And he was wonderful. He said, you know, we have been carrying this baggage of victimhood for long. I'm glad you're talking away, you know, and isse hatke thoda aap kar rahe hain. So that victimhood, I think we need to shed that. Rahul is right there. Ji.